Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Elden Ring. Last time, we went through Raya Lucaria, and while I didn't show it, we did go about defeating, what is her name? Renala, the Full Moon Queen? Whatever the case is, we end up doing that. And we get the Remembrance as well as the Great Rune, which there's not a lot you can actually do with the Great Rune other than you can essentially be quote unquote reborn. This is done by going and talking to Renala, who it turns out we didn't actually kill, and using like a larva, some item, and this will allow us to not only change the appearance of our character, but also to mess around with our stats to change them. It essentially allows us to take all of the levels that we put into it and completely redistribute them. I do not personally do anything with this at the time. I just kind of look around a bit, see how you do it and everything. There's also a chest that is in the library where Renala is that I can't open for whatever reason. I've gone back and tried to open it occasionally, but it keeps saying I do not have a key, aka it is locked, so I don't know how to access it. After defeating Renala, the next place I decided to go is a catacomb. It's something that I had found earlier on, but I just didn't make mention of because I decided it wasn't something that needed to be mentioned. Now, I'd go about the catacombs, and to be clear, from now on, catacombs I will oftentimes leave uncompleted, I think, because I just don't know exactly what I need to do. However, this one I do end up making through. There's being quite a bit of illusory walls, however you say that, and I end up getting to the boss, which is a spirit caller snail. However, the enemy that shows up isn't very snail-like. It's a crucible knight. Well, no, not a crucible knight. It has antlers and a spear instead. But it's pretty close. I ended up dying the first time around. Now, as you might have guessed, there's a bit of a gimmick to this fight. And I didn't notice until about my fifth time. But as you walk in the back right corner of the room, you can see a snail. Uh, you can see a snail in the back right, and then it's there for a second, and then it kind of disappears. Now, if you go back there, you can actually attack where the spirit snail is, and you can deal damage to it. You don't actually have to fight whatever that thing is called with all the antlers and everything. You just had to fight the snail, thankfully. So I ended up killing it and getting some ashes. Not that I ever end up using them, though. After this, I decide to actually go to one of these trees. I mentioned it previously, but there are a bunch of like little Erd trees, like minor Erd trees, I guess, around the map. So I decided to actually go to one of these because it's actually near a catacomb, or rather near the catacomb I was at. And at the base of this minor Erd tree is an Erd tree avatar. Now, actually, there's one at pretty much every single minor Erd tree, and they will drop tears. Their battle isn't overly hard. It mainly consists of a few swings and sometimes a bit of an explosion as well as a single ranged attack. The Erdtree avatars aren't really that hard to deal with. None of them really are. There are there is a version of them that you will encounter later on that is pretty difficult though. But that's a story for another time. After absolutely chopping down the Erdtree avatar, I end up going to a not exactly a castle. I'm not entirely sure how to describe it. Maybe a tower. And I ended up going there because it's something I had noticed previously and never actually ended up getting into. But before then, I ended up stopping by the Round Table Hold to do a little bit of upgrading and a little bit of purchasing. Nothing too interesting about that. However, I do end up talking to Mr. Hugh, or how I guess I should have put this. community blacksmith, I guess. And he ends up talking about a girl that I apparently brought, who I have, quite frankly, no memory of.
I don't know who she is. I'll be completely honest.
I don't know who this is or how I ended up bringing her here. Um, but she's here, and he talks about the fact that she has a kind of connection with spirits, and that if she so wishes, she could help with upgrading the ashes, upgrading spirits that you can summon. Once again, I never ended up doing this, at least not in this run. But yeah, this is how you set up the shop for upgrading your spirits. Now I actually head into the castle thingy. Now, there's not actually a whole lot interesting, at least not that I found, within this. There's probably a hidden wall somewhere that I just completely missed, but the main thing that I encounter in here is another named enemy, who is named Preceptor Miriam, and is an archer, and she is an archer. I'm not entirely sure. They will also summon enemies occasionally. I do end up killing her after a bit of a long, drawn out fight. This one was not nearly as hard as the other one, whose name I can't remember right now, but was the one who was blocking the path to Renala. And this person gave me a magic spell after a very long and dragged out fight. He's a coward and keeps running away. But other than after I defeat him, I kind of just look around a little bit. I defeat some more of the ghosts that are in the area. I didn't feel the need to mention them because they're not really that big of a thing. End up going into the rafters, fighting some like rats, and getting some items. Not anything too crazy, but like I said, there's probably something that I'm missing in here. After this, I end up teleporting to a different place once again, and I end up visiting some ruins. They're pretty obviously around the map. They're the kind of ones that will typically have an entrance that goes into the ground. And once you're down there, you fight off a bit of a horde of rats. Not too difficult, but could be annoying. And at the end of your bit of an ordeal, not really an ordeal, or not really an ordeal because it wasn't really that hard. But at the end of it, there is a chest. However, it's a trap, and this trap will take you into a mine. And yeah, it's it's a mine. Now I need to escape because unfortunately you're not allowed to fast travel out of anything that's enclosed, aka you can't fast travel out of a dungeon, catacomb, anything like that. And let me tell you, there is one very specific annoying enemy. I don't really know what they're called, but they are ranged and shoot out a lot of projectiles. So I die a few times working my way out, and once I do end up getting out, I am the scenery around me isn't particularly great. At the moment, I actually don't know where I am, but I know now that it is a place called Khalid. And anyone who has played Elden Ring knows that as a place of scarlet rot. But as I exit the area, there's just a bunch of weird hearts, I guess, spewing red smoke around. I decided I didn't want to mess with this place right now and fast travel out now that I'm out and away from everything. But I will be back here at another time, just not now. Now, after this, I ended up exploring around for a little bit, eventually winding up back to the dungeon area thingy where you initially start your place. It's the place that you come out of, and the Tree Sentinel is right there. That is where I go. Because inside of there, I remembered something. There is actually a Stone Sword key gate that is in there that was locked previously. However, now I have the Stone Sword keys required to get in. After evading the weird chariot traps, which I don't think the chariot traps killed me, but rather the enemies that were in there killed me once, as well as the poison that is contained within the dungeon. However, at the end of it is a boss named the Ulcerated Tree Spirit. which is a weird, fleshy, and woody mass that its main thing is this: it's really big and has a bit of an explodey tendencies. It reminds me of the Erdtree avatar that I fought earlier, but overall isn't that bad. It took me a couple tries, but after that, after I defeat it, I end up getting another Ash spirit thing of Banished Knight Oleg, as well as a Golden Seed, which is nice. After this, I end up heading south across a bridge kind of thing, where something bad seems to have happened. Some sort of massacre has happened, and I end up talking to a blind girl who asked me to go and find her father, who has stayed behind in the castle where whatever has happened has happened. Fair warnings ahead, I wish I did not take this quest, but there's nothing I can do about it now. Now, after this, I wander around for a bit before ending up in a catacomb that I'll just flat out say it, I do not see the end of. So we'll just kind of leave it at that. Next time, I will explore around a little bit more, but the main thing is I will end up going to the castle that's at the far south of this area where the blind girl's father is. And yeah, well, we'll just you'll just have to see. All right. Well, like, subscribe. I'd prefer you to comment, but whatever. Well, actually, if you have any tips on editing, any way to get better, anything I should do to make it more engaging, anything like that, that would be greatly appreciated. All right, bye.